Is also available on ABN television across Europe, DSTV and GoTV. Please stay. In our first story, quality of education is eroding at all levels. That's the verdict of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISSER, in its latest report on the state of the Ghanaian economy with focus on education. Presenting the findings of the study, Director of ISSER, Professor Felix Asante, said despite achieving an increase in access to education at all levels, government has failed to provide the needed funds to match the increase. This, he said, has led to a decline in education at all levels. JoyNews' Joseph Akaple has more in this report.
The Institute's 2015 report on the Ghanaian economy focused on the state of education in Ghana. The report assessed investment in the sector over the past years, as well as the performance of students. Director of ISSER, Professor Felix Asante, said the country's major achievement in the sector in recent times has been the increase in access to education. He attributes this feat to social intervention programs such as the feeding program at the basic level.
Achievements in the education sector. The main achievements of the education sector is improved access at all levels as a result of both public and private participation. At the basic level, the school feeding program, for example, has improved enrollment. There has also been significant reduction in the number of untrained teachers at the primary level. At the secondary level, we've done relatively well with the WASEC compared to students in the 4 other West African countries. I don't know whether this comparison is good, but I mean, our big brother Nigeria is in, so we'll take consolation from that we are better from them, but I don't think we should be comparing ourselves to, unfortunately, these are the 4 countries that also takes the WASEC. Private participation in the delivery of education in the tertiary sector is also a plus.
Professor Asante, however, believes this increase in access does not correspond to funding, leading to a decline in the quality of education at all levels.
Now let's look at the challenges. There is erosion in the quality of education at all levels as a result of increased access, not matched by increased funding. A secondary education system where the top 20% of schools graduate 70% of candidates for tertiary education is problematic. Enrollment in science and mathematics programs is significantly lower, stemming from the low performance at the SHS level. The National Accreditation Board has observed that the ratio of science-based programs to humanity-based programs in public universities were 36 to 64%. At both diploma and undergraduate level, and the overall ratio of science-based to humanity-based program was 30% to 70% in 2014.
Joseph Akable's report there. So joining us to find out what can be done to reverse this trend is the Acting Executive Director of the African Development Program, Charles Abe. Good evening to you, sir. Hello, Mr. Abe, if you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. Can you
Very good. I can hear you now. Wonderful. Now, are you surprised at the outcome of ISSER's report?
Well, good evening and thank you to your many viewers. I want to say that I'm not too surprised with the results that ISSER is communicating to all of us, because there are some critical issues ISSER highlights. And I think that the first I would want to touch on, the reason being me saying that I'm not surprised, is the fact that they mentioned National Accreditation Board observes that the ratio of the science to humanity-based programs is 3 to 7, 30% to 70%. And I'm worried if a public institution with a mandate to accredit programs and institutions will say it is worried, when it is actually the institution with the mandate to say that Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, you need to keep to your focus and mandate. University of Cape Coast, you need to keep to your focus and mandate, so they don't keep accrediting a lot of humanity-based programs into the system. So I'm not surprised, if you ask me.
So what can be done to reverse the trend?
I think tough policy decisions have to be taken. First of all, I have already alluded to what the National Accreditation Board needs to do. But secondly, in terms of funding, as a people, I do recall in an earlier conversation with Nana and Sakwa that we need to put our money where our mouth is. We keep talking of increasing quality. Yes, we have expanded infrastructure, but if there will be serious commitment to the teacher first principle or policy, where the teacher is well motivated, come to think of it, public officers, we are interested as a country in buying V8s and Land Cruisers for our ministers and officials at very exorbitant prices. And you go to a school like WAS Secondary Technical and you still have accommodation challenges for teachers. So the teacher is not well motivated. If the teacher is well motivated, trust me, he doesn't mind putting in the extra hours. Why is it that students in private institutions, per the report, are doing better than those in the public institutions? Because you know, when you take your child to that private school, there is close supervision because the proprietors of these institutions, at least to a large extent, remunerate these teachers quite better. There are all manner of incentives, even teaching and learning materials. When this country went recently, a headmistress made a harmless appeal asking for what is due them by way of registers, by way of chalk, and we all had a response. So if we would commit to providing the needed motivation for the teacher's teaching and learning materials, where he will sleep is important for the teacher, and even regular upgrade of their skills and abilities would go a long way to give them the motivation to give up their best.
All right. So, I mean, government insists that it's made huge investments in the sector, the educational sector, and yet this report reveals that there is a gap in terms of access. So, what's the missing link?
The missing link is that it is not enough to have infrastructure dotted across the country. It is not enough to have them sited in places where such that you say I'm expanding access, but then the teacher who is going to impart the knowledge into that child is not available. And even when you post the teacher to that place, the living environment, the living conditions that will support the teacher's stay is just unavailable. So I would expect that instead of multiplying infrastructure in relatively less known, or I would say unknown schools, most of the performance we are seeing, the good performance we are seeing in the secondary schools, for instance, are with those grade A schools, from the Accra Academies to the St. Louis to the Wesley Girls to Yasantua and all of that. So if there's any government funding to expand access, invest it into these schools which already have a certain quality of teachers. Once you do that and open up spaces in those institutions, then you can be sure that that young man from Wale Wale Secondary School would have access to Accra Academy, where relatively the quality of teaching and supervision is better than his village where he's coming from. So these are some of the quick fixes we need to do. But I want to Araba mention that the parental responsibility bits, I don't see it captured in this report, and I want to highlight that in this era, parenting, and for that matter, the economic considerations of parents are making them neglect their duties towards their children as far as education is concerned. How many parents today can say that make sure that homework is being done, to make sure that class assignments the child's development? The parental responsibility bit is missing, and I think that government needs to do its part, provide the resources for motivation for the teacher to be well motivated. But bottom line is that the parents, the father, the mother need to keep an eye on the quality or the development of the child as far as education is concerned.
All right. Thank you very much. And that's Charles Abbey. He's acting executive director of the African Development Program there, giving us his perspective on that ISSER report. Now, those who